Hey Dragons, it's time to do Unit 4 review! Alright, we have a table of values. Okay, if you're looking at your star rules, this is star rule number 2. Anytime you see a table of values, you're going to do a regression. So, the first thing that we need to do is we need to, if we have a cleared calculator, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to hit the Stat button and we're going to edit. And at this point, you're going to take your inputs, which is the top row up here. You're going to type it in, press enter after each time. And then you're going to do the same thing with your output, which is the second row. You're going to put that in L2. Make sure you have the same number of inputs and outputs. Okay? So once you have your data entered, you go back to Stat. Stat right here. And you're going to arrow to the right because you want to calculate. And because we looked up here, we read the problem. They tell us it's linear, so we want to do a linear regression, which is option 4. Okay, so we're going to arrow down, and because we need the equation, we're going to stop right here. And this is very important if you've forgotten this. We need to store the equation the calculator is going to give us into our y equal button. And the way to do that automatically, write this down if you need to. We're going to press alpha trace, and we're going to put, or tell the calculator to put the equation in y1 for us. So we're going to either hit 1 or enter since it's already set on 1. Okay, so we got that y sub 1 right there, yay. And now we keep going down here and press enter because we want it to calculate. Alright, so in linear regression, A is my slope, it's the coefficient of x, B is my y-intercept. But if I did that alpha trace enter correctly, if I press y equals, it has transferred all that information over. And what you want to do is you want the calculator to do that because you don't want to round this, because if you round this, it's going to affect your final answer. So why did we get an equation? So that we can go to our table of values. We want our table, which is second graph. So now, I think we can answer the question. How many dollars would be expected on a day with temperature 102 Fahrenheit? If you look up here, our temperatures are our inputs. So we want to look for 102 down here. You can scroll down there. Okay, you can start scrolling and go, oh my goodness, that's going to take a while. Here's what you can do. You can go up here to table set. It's the second function of the window button. So hit second window, and right here where it says table start, you can actually type in 102. So if I tell my table I want to start here, jump directly to an input of 102. Now if I go back to my table, second graph, it'll start right there. So the input is 102 and the output is 647.3. 647.3. Now since we're talking money, that's $647.30. Money goes out to 2 decimals. And we're asked to round it to the nearest dollar. And remember, nearest dollar is the ones place. We ask ourselves, is this 5 or above? The answer is no, so the 7 stays a 7. If this were 5 or higher, this would become an 8. So my answer is $647. Problem number 2. As we take a look at this, we're given a function where we're given the input and an output. So we got to recognize that this part right here is a point on the line. So this is our point. How do we interpret that? My input is -3, so that's my x. My output is 7, there's my y. So you need to be able to take this function notation and know that I have a point, negative 3, 7. That's on the line. And I have my slope of 1/2. So that is my m value. So you have a point and a slope. You have a point and a slope. Ding, 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 your point slope equation. Okay, remember you substitute into the second x and y, the one behind the minus sign. So make sure you get it right. First number, your x is a negative 3. So I'm subtracting a negative 3. And over here, my y is a 7. So I'm subtracting a 7. And my slope is simply 1/2. So now it's a matter of distributing and getting rid of the parentheses, and then making sure my x and y terms are on the same side because they want standard form. So we're going from point slope to standard form, which is ax plus by equals c. Okay, notice that has no parentheses. The first thing I want to do is I want to take care of what I call double signs. I'm subtracting a negative. Subtracting a negative is adding a positive. Okay, so now I'll distribute the 1/2. 1/2 of x is 1/2 x. Half of 3 is 1.5, or 3 over 2. Okay, so I've gotten rid of the parentheses. So now I need to, standard form needs to not have fractions, so I am going to get rid of my fraction. The only fraction I have has a denominator of 2, so I'm going to multiply everything by 2. Everything, I'm going to distribute a 2 to the left and to the right. So 2 times y is 2y, 2 times a negative 7 is negative 14. Half of 2 is 1, 1 times x is x, and 1.5 doubled is back to 3. Alright, so I want my x and my y to be on the same side. So currently they're not on the same side, so I'm going to zero out the y. And what I do to one side, I do to the other. Clean it up, I'm left with a negative 14 is equal to x minus 2y plus 3. So now I have my x and my y term on the same side, but this has neither an x nor a y. So I'm going to zero that guy out. I'll subtract 3 from one side, subtract 3 from the other. So I'm left with a negative 17 is equal to x minus 2y. So I need something with a negative 17. So these two go bye-bye. And the one that is x minus 2y, it's this one right here. The answer is B. Alright, over here we're asked for the 0. The 0 is the x-intercept. There are several ways you can do this. If you are an x-intercept, x-intercepts look like a number, comma, 0. If I'm going to be on the x-axis, my y value has to be 0. So one way I could do this is say, well, f of x is the same thing as y. So if I take a 0 and plug it in for y, I get this. Okay. Well, the only variable I have to solve for is the x of the x-intercept. See, I made my output equal to 0. That's why it's called a 0. And I'm solving for x. Well, if I solve this thing for x, I'm going to move the non-x term to the other side. So I get 0 minus 14, which is negative 14, equals negative 8x. And I'll divide by my coefficient. My coefficient is a negative 8. There's my 1s. See, it's all about zeros and ones, isn't it? Zeros and ones. Zeros and ones. Okay, so this is going to be a negative divided by negative is a positive, and if I take 14 divided by 8, I'll get 7 over 4, which is 1.75, if I've done that correctly. You can always grab your calculator, 14 divided by 8. And it is. Now, you could do your calculator. If f of x is the same thing as y, right here, I'm able to take this equation and put it in my y equal. So y equals negative 8x plus 14. So negative 8x plus 14. So we'll press graph, and we'll see it come in right there. Okay. See what my window is. Oh, my window's all jacked up. So I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to reset this. Okay. And the way that we can do this is we can hit zoom. We want the standard window, zoom 6. We'll bring it back to regular. There we go. This will be a lot better. Alright. So, we're going to get the line visible on our screen. And then we're going to remember that a 0 is one of our functions. Let's check this out. So if we go to second trace, you notice right here, 0 is an option. It's option 2. Okay. So remember over here we have to surround my target point. So if I look at my question, I want my cursor to be to the left of this target point. Okay, right now my cursor has an x of 0. So if I just start moving it, you can see right there. Alright, so look at my target. If my pencil is my target, this is my x-intercept. Is the blinking light to the left of my pencil? And the answer is yes. It can be anywhere to the left. So once I have my cursor doing what the calculator says, go to the left of my target. This is my 0 or my x-intercept. I'm going to press enter. Now the question changes. Now I need my cursor to be to the right. Well, currently my cursor is still to the left. So we'll just arrow down a little bit right here, arrow to the right. And now I need to ask myself, is the cursor to the right of my pencil? And the answer is yes, slightly, but it is to the right. So I'll press enter. And of course you notice right here, we want to surround my target. Here's my left boundary. Your calculator probably doesn't do this, show the line. But that's where you pressed enter. These little marks up here. You'll have these little marks on your calculator. Say no, I don't want to guess, just press enter again. And look what we got. We've got 1.75, which is exactly what we got over here. Whew, boy, am I going slow. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. Alright, write the slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b of the line that goes through 1, negative 5. So if they give you a picture, go ahead and put a dot at 1, negative 5. And is parallel to the line to the right. So I want a line that's parallel to the given one, so my pencil is showing what direction that I need, and that's a positive slope. I check my answers, all my slopes are positive. Alright, but just by putting my pencil up here, look at my y-intercepts. Do I cross at 3 or negative 7? Where does my pencil cross the y-axis? Positive 3 or negative 7? So just by putting my pencil on the paper, I know that it's got to be one of these two right here. Okay, so what's the slope of this one? Because parallel lines have the same slope. So if you remember all of our warm-ups where we said, hey, what's the rise, what's the run, what's the rise, what's the run? I'm going to look over here. I'm going to say, well, I'm going up 2 and right 1. Up 2 and right 1. That means that my slope for this one is 2 over 1. Well, parallel lines have the same slope. So now, if I look over here, the only one that has a slope of 2 is D, which is my answer. Now, if we wanted to show the work, we would use this point and we would use this slope. Notice I got my slope from the graph. I have to go get it. In the previous problem, it wasn't depicted in a picture. It was just given to me. Alright, so remember, anytime you're given a point and you know the slope you need, you can go. So if I put my 2 in for my slope, my x value is a 1 and my y value is a -5. Remember, if you subtract a negative, that's adding a positive. Distribute, you get 2x minus 2, and if you zero out and solve for y, -2 minus 7 is -5 is -7. So you can prove your answer right there. Alright, domain is x, range is y, less than, less than, less than, less than. From the left, we're going to go from the left, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a -4 is my low number on the left. To the right, my high number is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. And if I look at those endpoints right here, both of these are solid, so I'm equal to, there's my domain. And then from the bottom to the top, okay, the bottom is going to be -2, -4, -6, -8, and my top is 2, 4, 6, hey, what do you know, 8. And solid dot, there's my range. The y-intercept, if you're on the y-axis, your point is going to be 0, something. If you're on the y-axis, it's going to be 0, something. So I'm going to pick this guy right here. My y-intercept is 6. Alright, perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal. Alright, so I'm going to have one leg of the triangle lies on this. We have a y-intercept of -8 going up 2 and right 1 because my slope is 2, up 2 and right 1. So I'm going to have that line right there. Okay, they meet perpendicularly at 2, -4. That's this point right here. So I'm going to have another line that's coming up here and forming a right angle because, well, perpendicular lines form a right angle. So this slope is positive 2, and it just by looking at it, I know I need to have a negative. So the opposite of a positive is a negative. I need a negative in this case. And then the reciprocal of 2 is 1/2. So the slope that I need to use is a -1/2. That is the opposite reciprocal of a positive 2. Do I have a point? Yes, I do. Okay? So this one is just set up. If I just set it up properly. So my point slope is a very good place to start. The opposite reciprocal slope is going to be -1/2. So take a look at my answers. I can eliminate B because it has the wrong slope. It needs to be -1/2, and D. And so now I just got to make sure that I set it up properly. Y minus, what's my y value? It's a -4 equals my slope, parentheses, x minus my x value is a 2. Well, the parentheses doesn't tell me anything because they're the same. However, right here, when I subtract a negative, that's the same thing as adding a positive. So C is the one I want to go to. Alright, number 8. Write the equation of a line that's perpendicular to the x-axis. I always love pictures on this. There's my y-axis, there's my x-axis, and it's going to go through -4, that's going to the left, and 9. I'm just going to say this is -4, 9. Now if I'm perpendicular to this, that means that I'm coming together at a right angle. So my line, if I'm going to have a right angle to the x-axis, my line has to do this. because that way I can put my little 90-degree box. So looking at my pink line, is that horizontal or vertical? That's right, it's vertical line. So in Hoivux, the vertical line is right here. Alright, that's the whole reason why we're doing that. So we can forget the hoi. In this case, we're going with the vux. Vertical means that my slope is undefined. And my equation starts with an x. X equals, what's the only x value I have? Yeah, -4. And there we go. Alright, the next one is just another calculator problem. We're given a function, so let's type that bad boy in and say, okay, -3/4, and then parentheses x minus 9. Okay, so we're asked to find x. We're asked to find the input when my y is this. So I'm going to go searching for -2.25 in the y column or the L2 column because my input is in L1, so I want to find that. Alright, so here I go. Go to my table, second graph. Something's wrong. What did I do? Oh my goodness, I used a minus sign. What was I thinking? It should be negative. Alright, so I'm looking for a -2.25 in the y column. So I'm going to hop over there and start heading towards negatives. So go down, down, down. Finally into negatives. Negative, there we go, -2.25 as an output. So just simply go over here. Oh, it's 12. Alright, so x is equal to 12. 12. Alright, this is where you got to be able to solve for y. This one's already solved for y, so this has a slope of 4/5. This is in point slope form, so there's my slope right there. These two, I can't have anything that has 2 and 3 together. Oh, 2 and 3 together. No, sorry. Those aren't the same. They're equal slopes. This one over here, if I move my x term to both sides, I get -5y is equal to -4x minus 1 and divide by -5. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. So the slope on this one is 4/5. So that's the same as 2. Okay. So because this one is not solved for y, this one's solved for x. Did you notice that? Okay. Bonus, if you know how to solve for y, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 5/4. So this slope over here is 5/4. Alright, so 4/5 and 4/5, 2 and 4 is answer B. Alright, number 11, which one shows a causation, not just an association. Ladies and gentlemen, if you exercise, you are guaranteed to burn calories. All the other ones could happen, but they're not guaranteed. And then on problem number 12, you see a table of values. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to do a regression. And again, we're going to go to edit. We're going to put in every single one of these numbers, double checking. And then we're going to make sure that our diagnostic is on. Now remember, we need this correlation coefficient. We need to have our calculator give us an R value. So if you need to make sure you know that your calculator is doing it, you're going to need to go to second and then second 0 to get the catalog. So second and then 0. Alright, and then you're going to scroll down until you get to diagnostic on. Diagnostic on. It's not too far. Diagnostic on. Press enter twice. Okay. Diagnostic on and enter and then enter. Alright. So I wrote it down there real fast. So once we do that, go back to Stat and do a linear regression. Go to Calc, 4, and you don't have to store your equation. Just keep pressing Enter. And then now we're looking over here. We got it's a positive 0.91. A positive 0.91 is a strong positive association.